So, I'm gonna go out on a limb and do something that nobody asked for and explore the entire Monster High iceberg. So let's get started and start at the top of the iceberg. I did not make this iceberg, by the way. I will link the creator in the description down below, as well as the full iceberg, so you can read it for yourself. Yeah, I didn't make it. First thing on the iceberg is New Ghoul at School and Fright On, which are two movies that were made for the Monster High franchise. They were kind of like webisode movies, but New Ghoul at School featured Frankie kind of like moving into the new school and doing everything a magazine told her to do, and it was like really cringe because she kept like screwing with Cleo's life. And that's basically all that movie was. Also, there was lots of like emo songs in it. Then Fright On, which is the second movie, was a werewolf and vampire feud and racism. The DS and Wii games were games made for the Monster High franchise, and I never played the Wii games, so I can't really say much about that, but I played the DS game, and one of them you you make your own monster and you do quests for the Monster High ghouls. The CGI is traumatizing. Then the next DS game is a roller skate maze game where it's basically like Mario Kart, but it's Monster High roller maze characters. Next is the CGI movies, which are arguably the greatest cinematic masterpieces of all time. There was a handful of movies released. My favorites were Boo York, Ghouls Rule, and what was the other one? I can't remember my other favorite. Oh yeah, 13 Wishes. And there was so many good ones, and they were like kind of the height of the Monster High franchise, at least for me. Next is the website mini games, which were so fun, and my favorite one was the food fight one. But they were basically just games on the website that you could play. They were flash games. I don't know if they work anymore. I tried to play them in school when I was bored, but maybe that was just because school blocked the site, but I couldn't play them and I was sad. But yeah, they were really fun and I miss them. The Ghoul Friends book series was a book series featuring Venus, Rochelle, and Rebecca as the stars, and there's a couple books, but I like how it's featuring more of the secondary characters that didn't get enough screen time on the in the series. So if you're fans of them, maybe you like the books. There's also another book series which were made by Lizzie Harrison. I think that's how you say her name. And there's 6 books in this series, I think. Wait, never mind. 2 of the books are just like 2 books joined together. But anyways, there's 4 books. Monster High, The Ghoul Next Door, Where There's a Wolf, There's a Way, and Back and Deader Than Ever. And another interesting fact I just found out is that these books were made by the same creator that made the Click books, which is interesting. Let me know if you read them, if they have more angst, by the way. So a running gag throughout the series is that Draculaura is a vegetarian vampire who faints at the sight of blood. So the Skeletor dolls are doll lines that came out in 2020 which are kind of like, they're mostly like Stephen King inspired for some reason. There's a Pennywise one, there's Beetlejuice, there's the Shining Twins, and of course the Gremlins doll, which I really want. During the whole time of Monster High's existence, angry Karens have wanted to cancel it for being too risque, I guess, and they didn't think it was a good toy for their children to play with. And people think that's the reason it was discontinued, and I mean, I feel like they've been coming at Monster High since the beginning, and Monster had a very successful franchise for a long time, so I think that it got discontinued and rebranded due to the lack of money in their budget. So yeah, I don't think it was because of the Karens. It's no secret that Monster High was heavily influenced by the goth fashion craze at the time, with the rise of shops like Hot Topic and then the whole like emo phase of life. And yeah, so Monster High fashion is very heavily inspired by goth fashion, which is cool. So the hybrids were introduced in the Freaky Fusion movie. It includes Ava Trotter, Nathan Rott, Bonita Fumer, and Sierra Von Boo. I had the Sierra Von Boo, I still do, but they're basically like hybrids, half one monster, half another monster, which is a bit weird to think about, but still. They also had like the other ghouls in the series, so like kind of mashed together, which looked very interesting. And that's basically what hybrids of Monster High are. So now we're getting into the next part of the iceberg, so we're getting deeper down the iceberg. So the KIND campaign is a anti-bullying campaign founded by Molly Thompson and Lauren, I can't pronounce her last name, very sorry about that. And it's basically to end girl-on-girl cruelty. Monster High partnered with them, and they even got monster-fied versions of themselves in a shockumentary episode on one of the Monster High webisodes. It's a very good cause, and it's very on brand for the Monster High series. Well, I guess we're going to have to talk about it eventually. As most of you know, there's a 2022 reboot of Monster High being made. It's coming out in fall this year, and it's a movie, a live-action movie, that a lot of people have expressed their opinions of. Personally, I mean, it's different, and some things are good, but yeah, my opinions are pretty much the same as most people's on this movie. So in the whole time Monster High and Ever After High were airing, there was many hints that they were in the same universe. Like one of the characters literally switched from Monster High to Ever After High. So it was bound to happen that there would be a crossover, right? Well, no, that never happened. At least both the shows were kind of cancelled before that could happen. But a lot of people still have hopes and really want it to happen, including myself. So, We Stop Hate is a webisode on the Monster High series with a guest star called Emily Ann Regal, who gets her own monster-fied version of herself in the webisode. It's basically a pro-kindness message, and it's to do with the We Stop Hate campaign that I touched on earlier. So this is something nobody talks about enough, but Lady Gaga actually did a collab with Monster High, and they made a music video, and she even got her own monster-fied version of herself called Zombie Gaga. The doll was really cool. I think it was a Comic-Con exclusive doll as well. She looked pretty cool. And yeah. So people in the Monster High community believe that Ghoulia shows signs of being autistic. This is only headcanon, it's not canon in the show, but it's still interesting to think about. Custom dolls in the Monster High community is a big thing. It has been for a long time, where basically people take the dolls and they like change out their hair, they paint their faces, and they make some really impressive, cool work this way. And there's like so much content of it on YouTube and TikTok and everywhere. It's a really cool skill. So Luna, who was introduced in Boo York, is a moth creature who is the daughter of the Mothman. And then Bonita, who's another character that was introduced in Freaky Fusion, that if you go to her Wikipedia page, it also says she is the daughter of the Mothman, which makes them half siblings. Even though we never see them have any interaction in the whole series together, it's still weird how they never mentioned it in the show. Okay, whilst researching this part of the iceberg, I found out some really interesting things about Deuce. So apparently he does not know, his dad is unknown in the series, but his mom is obviously Medusa, but it also says that they have a home in on Petros Island in Greece, which this could be because he's from Greek mythology, so that would make sense. But when you think about the fact that he has a pet rat and it's called Perseus, his dad could very much be Perseus. And it's seen that his mom probably doesn't like talking to the dad based on his comment in Ghoul's Rule, where he says, "My family is complicated," and it also says in his diary that his mom did not like him calling the rat Perseus. So, interesting theory to think about. So throughout the series of Monster High, we're kind of given glimpses into Draculaura's origin story. So we know that she is 1600 years old, according to the movie Why Do Ghouls Fall in Love, but she's actually the adopted daughter of Dracula. She's not biologically his daughter. Her real parents are Camille and Gagus, human residents in Romania. So Gagus is a Roman soldier, and he basically dies in a battle, leaving Camille on her own, pregnant with Draculaura. But because Dracula was friends with Gagus, he takes them into his castle. But yeah, and then this is spicy, but Dracula and Camille eventually fall in love with each other, which is, I guess, yeah. And then Camille gets sick and dies. And Draculaura is also sick, but Dracula adopts her and converts her into a vampire, so she'll be immortal and won't die. Then it goes into the fact when she went to the vampire court and she met Elizabeth, which is explored in the Frights camera action movie. There's also Why Do Ghouls Fall in Love, where she goes to high school in Transylvania and meets Valentine, and that's where all that happens. But then she has to evacuate the town because she's caught eating something red, and they think she's eating human flesh. And yeah, it's all really interesting though. I would definitely suggest reading up some of this on the Monster High wiki page. Sorry if that part of the video was kind of rough. It was really hard to read all that information and remember it. But yeah, now I'm going to go into Cleo's backstory and try my best to not muffle that up. Cleo was an Egyptian princess born 5,800 years ago. She was not going to inherit the throne. Nephra was. So she was born knowing she would never get the throne. Then she's basically spent her whole life being compared to Nephra, which we kind of see in the series as well. But then in their kingdom, Cleo's uncle wants to overthrow her dad. That's spicy. So in order to stop this, to prevent this overthrowing, Cleo's dad found loyal followers that had this whole plan to bring them down to the underground headquarters and wrap them in magic cloth, which would keep them asleep whilst they dealt with the problem. Sounds sketchy. But what the Denials didn't know was that this was all the plan to keep them asleep forever. They woke up after 1,300 years to find that the queen was still missing, and they were trapped in a hiding spot. Then there was an earthquake which damaged the prison enough to create a hole. The family rejoiced. They moved to New Salem, and they basically left off with the Monster High series. Cleo joined the school. They had a large access to magical artifacts that worked for them, and over 10,000 servants. To this day of Monster High, Cleo is split up from her mom, still like having a huge feud with her sister. And there was even this character, Amanita Nightshade, that entered the pyramids whilst they were trapped and would promise to come back and save her, but then didn't. And Cleo had a huge kind of hang up about her, which rightfully so. Okay, so now we're getting into the middle of the iceberg, so we're kind of getting to more of the creepy stuff. First thing is Salem, Massachusetts, which is where Monster High is believed to take place, is also where the Salem witch trials took place. So this is never brought up in the show, but if you read the diaries, then you know that Cleo and Claude actually used to date. They were kind of put together because they were the most popular people in their school. That is why at the start of the series, Claudine and Cleo kind of have some beef, but you know, after a while that goes away. I'm kind of glad it's never really addressed in the show, because I don't really want it to take away from Claude and Jackie Laura being a couple and Deuce and Cleo being a couple, because I love those couples the way they are, and the idea of Claude and Cleo is certainly interesting. The Little Siblings dolls were a line introduced to the reboot Monster High, which was supposedly to give more insight into the Monster High home lives. I mean, I don't really know if this was needed, but okay then. So, Frightmares are basically Monster High, half centaurs, half unique monster, introduced once again in the reboot. They're very unnecessary, kind of like a last minute grab for cash. Yeah. You could tell I'm not really interested in reboot stuff. So throughout the Monster High show, they use the word normies to describe humans, which in Ghoul's Rule, it's shown that humans and monsters hate each other and they have a huge feud, and it's definitely trying to reference racism. And the way they use normies is kind of as if they're using it as a bad word. So yeah, it's most likely a slur in the Monster High world. So there's actually a Monster High anime. There's no dub for the anime though, it's just in Japanese. But it looks really cute and the designs are so cute. So apparently there's a theory that everything is in Frankie's head, she made the whole thing up, which is an interesting theory, but I really can't find anything really about it to back it up. It's just kind of on the iceberg, so I thought I'd mention it, and you guys can tell me if there's any information you know about the theory, but for me, I couldn't really find anything. People believe that some of the characters in Monster High are members of the LGBT. There's a popular theory that Claudine is lesbian, which, I mean, to me, I feel like she might be. Also, people believe characters like Finnegan Wake, Nathan Roth, and Kiyomi are also members of the LGBT. The creators have confirmed that some of the characters in Monster High actually are LGBT, including Finnegan Wake, which is said to be pan, whilst Kieran Valentine is gay but is ashamed of himself being gay, so he breaks the hearts of women. And the creators also said that they also agree that Claudine is lesbian. Okay, so I'm back to film the last part of this video. I'm in a different outfit. It's a few days later. Anyways, so The Lost Movie was a movie that was meant to come out in 2016. It's called Fairy Tale, and it's basically a Monster High and Ever After High crossover. So that was meant to happen, but it didn't end up actually happening, and they did post a storyboard on YouTube if you want to go watch that. It's safe to say we never see many of the parents in Monster High world, which could mean maybe they're unpresent in their children's lives. One of the only ones we really see is Cleo's dad and Rebecca's dad. We also get in the reboot to see Dracula and Claudine's mom. So, can anyone explain why we barely see any parents? But, yeah, anyways. It was a character that was supposed to be in the Lost movie Fairy Tales. She's Draculaura's friend, and she's obsessed with fairy tales and trying to find out more about them. She has a really cool character design. New characters disappear after their movie. So, Monster High, it being a toy franchise, every time they make a movie they do need to introduce new characters, but I feel like they kind of all fall out into the background. Like Venus, we got no scenes with her. She was cool. And many more. Gigi from 13 Wishes. There's just so many that just kind of fade into the background after being such a big part of a movie. And it's very clear it's for selling toys purposes that they need to be there in the first place. And they do serve purpose to the plot of the movies, obviously, but just after a while, a lot of them just don't really cut it. Although I will say I'm really happy that Twyla stayed around, because she was one I was kind of like, thought would just kind of be discarded too. But she actually stayed for a good few movies after 13 Wishes. Kiyomi's crush. Kiyomi was a character that was in the movie Haunted, and basically in the plot of Haunted, Draculaura's life keeps getting kind of messed with. Not in a bad way, but basically someone's haunting her. And then they go to the ghost realm to find out who it is, and it's Kiyomi. And Kiyomi looks like she's in gay panic mode every second of talking to her. So this is very obviously a romantic interest. This is not just, oh, I wanted to be friends with her. No, this was romantic. In 2011, Mattel held a doll election where they would have 3 dolls and the fans would vote on who they wanted to be released as of that year. The candidates include Winona, Headmistress Bloodgood, and Sarah Screams. Winona won, but I mean, that's just a crime because Sarah really should have won. Like, she is so snatched. Monster High dolls weren't always going to look the way they do. In fact, the original prototypes looked a bit more Barbie-ish. I do like I love the way the Monster Highs look, like the way they turned out, but these were cool and they were interesting, but I don't know if they would have been quite as iconic as Monster High. So I'm pretty sure this theory comes from, based on what I found, this was very hard to find information on, but that Cleo chose Ghoulia to be her friend and took a chance on Ghoulia, despite the fact that other people would discriminate against zombies. So, yeah, that's all I could find on that. This theory comes from Draculaura being immortal and a vampire, so supposedly she'd have to watch all her friends die, which isn't really true, at least for some of them, because most monsters tend to be immortal as well. Like Spectra and Cleo, she won't have to watch them die. But now that I think about it, she might have to watch Claudine die, and that's pretty sad. So this theory comes from the fact that Frankie remains throughout the whole show to say she's 15 days old, which would make no sense as the show has, continuously went on with more and more days. So people think maybe it's because there's a new Frankie every day. The Gory Gazette was a newspaper founded by Spectra. In Freaky Fusion, they went to the 50s, and we basically got to see Frankie's granddad, Mr. Rodder in teenage form, and many other cool designs in the background. In Spectra's diary, it says that Ghoulia has a newspaper about the Voltergeist, and it's heavily implied that she knows about Spectra's normie life. So, Spectra is a pretty mysterious figure, according to the Monster High Wiki. She's basically crafted this mystery around her life that she doesn't want people to find out. She's believed to have been a human at one point in the 19th century, and her death is supposed to be tragic. So in 13 Wishes, Cleo is holding a book with symbols on the back that resemble a Levantine cross, which means sulfur, but it's basically associated with Satanism just because it uses brimstone, which is associated with the devil. Count Fabulous is believed to be a vampire due to the fact that in their wiki page it says they are 1,000 years old, which would make no sense because bats only live till 41 years. And also, there's another line where it says, "I prefer to be in my bat suit," which could mean bat form. This theory comes from the fact when, in ancient Egypt, if a queen was absent, the king would have, and they had no siblings, the king would have to marry the firstborn daughter. So some of the Monster High characters weren't always monsters, they were actually humans before and had lives before being monsters. They might have become monsters due to death or mummification. Trademarked and unused dolls. There was a few names that were trademarked by Monster High that just never actually made it, including Uma, who was supposed to be in the crossover between Ever After High and Monster High, and Jean Claw, who was supposed to be in Scarce and the City of Frights. On the topic of trademark names, Giant Girl was supposed to be in Boo York, Boo York, and she lives in the sewers. That's all we really know about her. Shadow High is a place in the Ever After High and Monster High world. Basically, Cupid has transferred from Monster High to Ever After High, showing that they live in the same world. And there's even a crossover book between Monster High and Ever After High about called like The Legend of Shadow High. And in this, they discover Shadow High and the evil lurking there. So this is all like kind of adding up to one like big theory that I will link down in the description, that because there's goddesses and gods in the world of Ever After High and Monster High, that it all connects to the DC superhero world too, which would connect it to DC, and that would connect it to a whole load of stuff. This comes from the fact that Monster High characters are all given favorite foods, and if you look under Laguna's favorite food, it says sushi, which is fish, which equals cannibalism because she is in fact a fish. This comes from the fact that in Friday Night Frights, Rebecca basically dies, well not dies, but she gets like broken, I guess, because she's a robot in a roller maze race, and the people she was racing were men, so that's not good. But she does however get put back together and back to life and saves the day. So the Monster High Catacombs are seen in many movies. It seems to have an infinite amount of space and rooms, and people just wonder, how far does it really go? It's kind of like the back rooms in a way. According to the wiki, the layout of the catacombs includes the Pit of Heart, a cauldron of eternal body odor, the Hall of Halloween, the library, the radio station, a laboratory, an opera house, a soundproof recording studio, a Skulltimate roller maze course, a train station, a zombie path, and a deserted castle. So they're also believed to be very dangerous, and also the fact that there's even a way to get to the ocean, apparently. So people believe it can go on forever. The wiki says there's many creatures left to be discovered in the catacombs, which definitely leaves this as the deepest part of the iceberg. My ending thoughts and conclusion on this is, as someone who thought they knew a lot about Monster High, doing this iceberg and exploring all these interesting theories and facts made me really broaden my horizons and knowledge about Monster High. So it's just really interesting to read about all the lore behind Monster High and how really like deep this series goes. and from just being a kids show, and all the interesting theories people have made up and things that people have spotted. This was actually a really cool iceberg to discover, and I have many links of my sources down below in the description. And I've also, another YouTuber has helped me find out information on this topic and also edit the video, so I will link her channel down below as well. And I mean, if you liked watching this, then please leave a like or subscribe. And if you want me to do more, I will, because I could do the Ever After High iceberg or just like talk about Monster High in general. So anyways, thanks for watching and bye!